I've just been thinking about why I'm less inclined to speak my mind than I used to be. And I think there's a lot of factors involved, but I probably have been sucked in a little bit to, all this culture war stuff going on. I think that has affected what I want to say. Not necessarily because I'm worried about upsetting people, because I've been upsetting people for years, honestly. But more because, it could have actual consequences for me if I did say the wrong thing. The main concern that I have is being a musician. Obviously, I'm in a lot of creative circles, and creative circles do tend to be dominated by that sort of left-leaning progressive kind of vibe. And yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things stopping me from saying stuff, because I worry about the consequences, not necessarily about people's feelings, because I do have schizoid personality disorder, and I think that helps explain to me why I just haven't given a crap in the past. But I'm older now, I'm also more stable, I understand more things about the world, and since getting the diagnosis, I understand now that people actually have these really intense emotions that I just can't relate to because I haven't experienced that for myself. The closest I can get is if I think about my dog. I clearly care about him. I say it in that way, which tells you that I'm still a little bit detached from it, but I do have some kind of instinct to care for him, and I do worry about him when he gets hurt or when he's looking like he's sick and stuff like that. I mean, sometimes it does feel like the sort of duty kinds of things and like an obligation, but no, I think I do care about him. Just, you do see how I have to think that much to try and understand the emotion, because it's also blocked off for me. I guess, yeah, because of the schizoid personality disorder, and the things about duty and obligation I think come from my glass child trauma. That's growing up with a disabled brother and trying to be the good girl so that my parents could look after him. Yeah, I have a lot of my brain does a lot of that sort of duty and obligation kind of vibe still. But yeah, all these different things, it's sort of helped me understand that people are quite different, and that's why they react in ways that seem extreme to me or seem illogical to me. But yeah, now there are if there's, sorry, I'm just looking out the window. This is not a great place to be filming. Apart from this wall's nice, but yeah, no, just sort of thinking about possible consequences, because I do move in those sort of left-leaning circles, and I'm not even like a right-wing, what do you call it? Conservative. The thing about conservative is the word kind of just means that you don't want change, you're trying to conserve. And so technically there are some areas you probably could slap that label on me, but other things you could slap the progressive label on me. So let's just call me a centrist and be done with it. I'm not like one of these intense right-wingers who's like anti-abortion and all that kind of stuff. No. But yeah, anyway, it's just that you could do something incredibly benign, and these days some of those people will get quite aggro at you. It hasn't really happened to me. There was an online argument that I found myself in related to they them pronouns, and this was quite a long time ago, so it's probably worse now if I stumbled into that. Well, so at that time what happened is the post was about someone struggling to get their head around the they, them, singular they, them, which is grammatically incorrect, but you can use it that way and it kind of works. But, all I said in that post was at least they're trying, isn't that, give them a chance. And because I wasn't just screaming obscenities at this person, I got attacked. Even though I was sort of being supportive and being they're trying, they're making progress. No, you're not allowed to say that. So that surprised me. But, that was an online thing in a particular group, and, nothing related to my real life. In terms of real life, something that didn't happen to me but did happen to a friend who I apparently went to uni with, but I'm really bad at remembering people, so she remembered me. I didn't remember her. But anyway, I saw that this happened a while ago, she got banned from a venue just for having dreads, and for looking white. Now, people think I'm white. I've had to tell someone, I actually got asked my racial background because a thing that I was involved in, they wanted a person of color and I seem white, so they were, they needed to know my background. And I said, well, I'm actually half Japanese and half some miscellaneous white Australian. I don't know if that was enough. I never found out if that was enough. But, I already did the thing and it's done, and whatever happens with it is not my problem. But, yeah, so, people go around assuming people are white. Like, you shouldn't even care that someone's white. Like, it's, the content of your character, not the color of your skin. But yeah, anyway, so because she looks white and she had dreads, she got cancelled and banned from a venue. And like, dreads are not exclusive to black culture. Like, if your hair dreads with certain kind of treatment, it just happens. Like, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to like animals when they're neglected as well. Their fur mats, our hair dreads. It's just a thing that happens, especially if you're not like, if you don't wash it and condition it and brush it, if you just let it do its thing over time, it's gonna get tangled and more tangled and it'll dread. It's just how hair works. And black hairdressers have pointed this out, but no, she got cancelled from this venue just for having dreads. And it was such a benign thing because she is not a right-wing conservative. Like, if anything, as far as I'm aware, she's more left-leaning than anything else. And so it was quite a shock to see her get cancelled in that way. And so, like, any small thing could get you cancelled. And I wonder if I think that has had an impact on me. Because, like, I mean, there are a lot of other factors. I'm less crazy than I used to be. Those of you who've been watching me for 15 years, if you remember. I was in my early 20s though, and a lot of people go through a self-discovery phase, and I think that was the same for me. And not understanding my life, and like coming out of school and not knowing what I wanted to do with myself, and jumping from hobby to hobby because anhedonia just... I think with, like, I've heard a lot of schizoids say that, we're looking for something to fill the void, but can't find it. And, we'll find something to go for, but as soon as the novelty wears off, we just can't hold on to any of those feelings. So you jump from thing to thing, and I was definitely doing a lot of that. So I think I was very unstable in that way. Also, the hormones, I had more testosterone at the time because that's before I was on the pill, and then once I was on the pill, things got a little bit better, but it's only since I started taking the pill back to back that I feel like my hormones have really chilled out, because now I'm not getting those cycles. It's much more flat. I have less testosterone in my system all the time. So I think that's definitely stabilized me, and I have less of that aggro, like rah, and less confrontational. Also, I'm older. I'm really old now. I'm old and cranky, and yeah, I ain't got time for shit. Also, I'm cynical, finding out about having schizoid personality disorder and just realizing that I don't experience the world like other people do. There's a lot of factors that I think have chilled me out and made me less inclined to speak my mind. I think when I got really badly depressed, and especially in 2016, I had nothing to do. I wasn't able to work. Trump and Brexit were going on, so I ended up watching a lot of YouTube, and I didn't really watch YouTube before then. I think that sort of got me addicted to the internet, and I just started doing less in the rest of my life, and that probably made me feel less like, I don't know, less crazy in that way, because I was just sort of being brainwashed by the screen, or just sort of in a hypnosis. And if you're in a hypnosis and not thinking about stuff, then, you're less crazy, I feel. But yeah, I think the main thing that's probably stifled me is a little bit of concern about cancel culture. Now, I know there's some argument over whether or not cancel culture is a thing, but it's still drama, and I don't have the energy for drama these days. And, if a friend who is really sweet and like a really nice person, and if she can get cancelled just for having dreads, I'm a bit like, well, I have a lot of opinions that I'm sure I'd get cancelled for as well. And I think a lot of this stuff is very much online, at least like in Australia. I know in America and in the UK, people have had some pretty, things get pretty intense over there, and the consequences are bigger. In Australia is more conservative overall, I think. We're also less extreme in our politics, I think, because we all have to vote, and so, the major political parties tend to try for the center. If you go too far from the center, you end up putting everyone off and you don't get in power. So I think that, and also like Aussies are more laid back and chill. So when I worry about these consequences, some of it is just from looking at the online world and not looking at the reality of Australia. People are always trying to import, you know, American problems into Australia, but things are very different here. For example, cops here, it's not like in America where every cop has to worry that any person could have a gun at any time. We don't have guns here in Australia, like not that many. I have been to a shooting range and, you know, criminals do occasionally have a bit of a shootout, but it's not this huge issue. We don't have school shootings, for example. Things are much more chill. Our cops are much more chill, and they'll be like, you know, there's always things that go wrong, but what's not talked about is all the things where people have been chill. And, you know, one of the things I like to remember is we had the APEC thing and the Chasers War on everything. They managed to sneak a car past security with a Canadian flag and then have someone dressed as Osama bin Laden walk out. And I remember people talking at the time that if that had happened in America, they would have been shot by snipers. But it's Australia, so all they did was like, you know, the cops probably laughed at it. They probably chuckled and then were like, ah, shit, gotta get these clowns out of here, and, you know, kicked them out. Things are just less intense here. So, you know, there will still be some issues that have some similarities, but it's much more chill and people have more of a sense of humor. Yeah, anyway, so I think some of my concern is probably just because of the online world. And so, you know, if I said something that people didn't like, I'd probably be fine at most venues anyway. It's just, I don't know, there are some aspects of that, you know, more woke, progressive, perpetually offended kind of thing sneaking into Aussie culture. And so we'll see how it goes. But I don't know, it just makes me think, like, is that a restriction on me, and how seriously should I take it? Because I don't want to sabotage opportunities for my band, because, I mean, you know, we're not really at that stage yet, but yeah, I don't want to cause trouble in that sense, especially like when we're just starting out. But on the other hand, like, I do want to be able to speak my mind, and like, you know, I wonder, should I preface before I say something that I think might offend people? And, you know, I've offended people, not just like, you know, I've talked a bit about the lefty stuff, but I've also offended, like, you know, back in the day, you know, some family members. That's another thing is now a lot more people who I know in real life know about my YouTube channel and tune in sometimes, and that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. But yeah, way back, you know, maybe 15 years ago or so, I did say something on YouTube about a cousin's wedding, and I got a bit of shit for that because a family member found it and they were offended. I think what I was saying was stuff like, you know, I felt uncomfortable about all the religious connotations and like this assumption that they're gonna go and have kids. Like, it feels a lot of pressure, the Catholic wedding. That whole marriage ceremony, it's just like, now go and have a whole bunch of kids because God and stuff. Like, it's kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah, and so I copped shit for that. And, you know, some of the religious stuff. And like, yeah, you know, I used to get the nasty messages about being asexual, you know, people who were really very disgusting, gross messages. And then, you know, the people who would come around and try and convert you to Christianity as well. And, yeah, early on in Facebook, in my early Facebook days before the censorship was a thing and you could just shitpost and say whatever, that was also when I was going through a lot more intense shit with the destroyer stuff, like that piece of me that's quite dark and violent. I used to make some very unhinged Facebook posts that were quite out there, and you know, at other times I would say things like, one of the things that I used to say a lot on Facebook is like, a celebrity would die and people would just have this, there'd be these constant tributes all day. And because I can't connect to celebrities in that way, and I don't care, and like, you know, you haven't thought about this celebrity all year, but now they're dead, suddenly you're like all emotional about them, and you didn't even meet them, and there's people dying every day, and you know, there are people who've never had the opportunity that these celebrities have had, but you're crying about the celebrity and you don't give a shit about all the other death in the world. Like, you know, I used to make those kinds of posts and people would get upset with me and be like, you're so insensitive and blah blah. So, you know, whether I was writing just like violent shit or saying shit like that, like, I've always upset people in some way. But I don't know, it feels different now, I think, because that political side of things, they are so over the top, and you know, they do try and cause real world consequences, whereas with the other stuff, people might just sort of like avoid me a little bit and sort of, you know, just think I'm odd and weird and sort of, you know not to do certain things with me because I'm not going to get it, and I'm probably going to say no if you just want to hang out. I need to go somewhere for a reason. But with the political stuff, and like even you can say something completely benign or do something completely benign, and suddenly you have this avalanche of abuse, basically harassment and all that kind of stuff, because they're so over the top about being offended and looking for ways to be offended. I wonder if that is a big contributor, and you know, how seriously do I take it, and should I just say what I want to say up front? There's a lot of stuff that I haven't talked about because of some of that. I do let things slip, like in a live stream, because I know that, you know, the chances of someone trawling through my live stream and causing a big fuss about something I've said, it's pretty low. This video probably has more chance of someone going through it and being like, just say what you were gonna say so we all know that you're some kind of a bigot and blah blah blah. Yeah, I don't know, like I'm still saying some of the stuff that I think, but I guess I'm a bit more careful about some of it, and I'm sort of been thinking like, should I be? Because, yeah, okay, I don't want to cause bad consequences for my band or for other creative stuff I want to be involved in, but on the other hand, given that I could be cancelled at any moment for anything, maybe I should just not give a shit because it's going to happen eventually anyway. Like, there's a bit of that thought going in, like I can't control it, someone's going to have an issue at some point, so there's that. Also, like, you know, in my head I'm probably like, I would say I'm catastrophizing a little bit. I'm thinking like, what's the worst that could happen is I could get banned from everything and never get a gig again. Now that's not going to happen because a lot of people are reasonable, and I think in Australia as well, you know, we see what's happening overseas, we see the pendulum swinging all that way. And there is backlash, increasing backlash, and it's coming back, hopefully not too far the other way. I don't know, so one of the things that I thought recently that's kind of amusing is just thinking about the Harry Potter thing, because when I was young, it was the religious Christians who wanted to ban Harry Potter because it was promoting witchcraft to the kids, and we can't have that. Whereas now it's swung to the sort of more queer progressive side who want to cancel Harry Potter because of shit the writer has said. So they both want to cancel Harry Potter, whereas I just didn't like Harry Potter because my idea of wizards is very much Earthsea inspired, and the idea of like these kids waving wands around and riding broomsticks to me is not what a wizard should be, and so I have my own reason. I'm bigoted against wizards with wands and broomsticks rather than having a religious issue or an issue with the author. It's just interesting how times have changed, because you can sort of see where the power in society, like it used to be more the religious guys who were in charge of everything. Now it's the secular progressive whatever types who are trying to call all the shots. And at some point, can we bring that back to the center and make everything a little bit less crazy? But knowing the way humanity works, it's going to go too far the other way, and then we're going to have to deal with the religious guys again, or, you know, whatever ends up replacing them on that side, and then it'll just keep going like this. And it's like, oh my god, does humanity have to always take everything to the extremes? I think activism has a lot of issues though, because, you know, once you get on a roll, people don't know when to stop. But you could say the same about religious activists, as they don't know when to stop either. I don't know, humans are frustrating, and so maybe I should just say whatever and be like, fuck you guys. I'm going to offend you all anyway, and if I offend both of you, that means I'm being reasonably balanced, you'd hope. But yeah, no, I sort of wonder, should I just preface everything with saying, now, before you get too offended, keep in mind that I'm schizoid, which means that I don't understand your shit. Like, do I need to say that and stop them being like that sort of, like, I don't know, with that side being anti-ableism, like, can I argue from their perspective, I've got schizoid personality disorder, lay off, this is just how my brain works, you know, seeing as we're going for this whole neurodivergent blah blah blah, like all that's trendy? Or is it only if you think in the right weird way that they're forgiving? Because I know that they've decided certain trans people aren't trans enough, certain black people don't have black enough opinions, and so on and so forth. And some of them consider Asians to be white because they're too successful because they're nerds. I don't know. The world is so annoying. Anyway, so I wonder how much that has affected me being crazy, but there are the other factors. I think also, though, one of the big things is just that the darker part of me, the sort of dissociation type stuff, it's been less of an issue, and so I haven't had to vent that out as much. Whereas when I was younger and still struggling with it a lot, and before I had that really deep depression that I think messed with my brain a little bit, I would have more of those sort of outbursts. And yeah, probably the testosterone played a part in it. If I'm so sensitive to all kinds of chemicals, because yeah, antihistamines do make me depressed. And I had a sugar hangover one day, so I went voting. I was going to make a video about voting actually, but yeah, no, I went and hunted down my democracy sausage. So yes, voting is compulsory in Australia, and I think that's a good thing. It stops us getting too extreme in any direction, because, you know, if the general public vote, they tend to be in the centre. But yeah, no, I hunted down my democracy sausage, which is the other way that you make Aussies vote, is you lure them out with a barbecue. So I had my democracy sausage, but I also had a whole can of Coke, and then I was walking around, like I had to walk around to find a booth that had democracy sausage, because it was a referendum vote, not a regular election vote. And election votes, they always have the democracy sausage, but it's been so long since a referendum that some of these booths just didn't think maybe we should have democracy sausage. Anyway, so I had to walk a long way to get there, and then I had to walk a long way to get back, and you know, it was a sort of warm day and I got a bit hot, so after having that whole can of Coke, I stopped for iced chocolate, and that amount of sugar apparently my body can't handle. Maybe I could handle it when I was a kid, but now I'm old and cranky, and my body can't tolerate anything basically. So I, you know, within an hour of getting home, I had a really bad headache, a sugar headache, and a sugar hangover. I mean, is it a hangover if I didn't really sleep first? But, you know, I was just like, I was so screwed up. So, yeah, small chemicals can make big changes to me and how I feel, and I assume how I think as well. So, yeah, less testosterone. Anyway, I'm rambling because I don't remember what I've already said in this video. But, yeah, I do kind of lament how crazy I used to be. And, like, I think there's been a loss of confidence somewhere in there, and because, like, you know, I have to wait for the house to be empty to be able to make this vlog, which I don't think I used to. I think I just used to close my door and, you know, ignore stuff going on in the rest of the house. But now I need the house to be empty and no one to be around, no painters and things outside. Yeah, so there's some weird loss of confidence there, and I'm not sure. I guess it's probably a combination of factors, you know, like less crazy, less of the psychological things going on in the background, getting older, more stable hormones, and the sort of social situation, knowing that people might watch me, knowing that there might be real world consequences if I'm unlucky. Because, you know, it's a little bit of a big ego to be like, oh, I'm going to be cancelled. But, you know, if I get unlucky and someone decides to make it into an issue, there's that. Yeah, I don't know. There's so much going on. It's really funny to see. I don't know, this sort of like progressive over-the-top stuff. It does feel a bit like its own cult these days, because they excommunicate people, which is what cults do. And so there's a kind of a religious aspect to that. If you're a heretic and you say the wrong thing, even if you're an alternative person who has had to deal with bullshit from the religious conservative right wing for so long, you offend the other side, you're out on your own. So you can't fucking win if you're a centrist, basically. Yeah, no. And then, yeah, like the schizoid thing. Just sort of realizing that I don't understand things, and should I talk? But I think I should talk about my experience. Really, like, I shouldn't shut up just because I have mental illness. I think that is just something that colors my perspective, and I wish people would just chill the fuck out. Anyway, yeah, I've been thinking about that. If I'm in this sort of a mood and feeling more confident, maybe I will just say what I think. But at other times when I'm too tired and I don't want to deal with even looking at comments coming in, maybe that puts me off. Anyway, I think I'm sort of going in circles, saying the same thing over and over, so I'm going to stop and get lunch. But I've really made a lot I've done a lot with the time that I have the house to myself. So yeah, I really do need my own space. I need to win the lotto. I need to buy myself a nice quiet house, and then I can do heaps more YouTube instead of feeling restricted, because that's been a big problem for me the last few days, is just feeling like I can't make videos, can't do anything. And it started to make me agitated, and maybe that's why I suddenly had this burst of energy, like it just sort of built up and had to come out, and it's taken the first opportunity. I'm still not acting crazy like I used to, because I'm just too old and too tired. I've changed too much, the world's changed too much, but I do miss that about me, and so maybe I think I need to decide how much these things actually matter. And yeah, am I being too careful these days? I probably am. But you know, you guys have seen what the internet's like these days. It's probably not entirely unfounded, and some of the real world stuff. The main thing I've got going for me is that I'm in Australia. Depending on how Australia goes. Anyway, I'm rambling, I'm hungry. I will see you in the next one, whenever the hell that is.